Rhythm. Rhythm is one of the most foundational principles in all of music. It is, if you want to describe it as the literal foundation of a house, the structure of rhythm is super important in music. Now, whether you happen to be a chorus student, a band, orchestra, general music, any kind of student, even a non-music student, rhythm is super important because it helps us understand music in general. So in this little video, we're going to kind of go over the basics of rhythms. Now, some things you might already know, and this is hopefully a review in a lot of different ways. But as we go through this video, we're going to go from very basic to a little bit more complex. We're going to go over some rhythm principles and also performing rhythm, some rhythm tips. And everyone has different approaches to rhythm, but I hope that this video will serve as kind of either a great review or a strengthening to your rhythm capabilities. So let's take a look down here, and on this rhythm sheet, let's start with some of the basics here. Let's correctly identify some things. I know I have so many students who will look at a piece of music and they can't articulate or they can't explain what they see. So right off the bat, I'm just going to ask you a question. And as we go through this video, I'm going to ask you questions or ask you to perform something. And I'd like you to actually do that because it's a better way to learn rather than me telling you this is what this means and this is how you do this. If you participate, you're going to learn a lot better and hopefully remember and improve. Okay. So first question is, what do we call this? What I just circled, what is that whole section of a piece of music called? Now, if you haven't answered yet, I want you to literally answer out loud. And hopefully you said, yes, this whole big section is called a measure. A measure is the space between two bar lines, okay? It's a space between two bar lines. And if you look over here, if you had to give me a number, how many measures do we have in this circle? How many measures do we have in this circle? Okay. Again, say it out loud. Hopefully you said a number, and hopefully that number is 4. Now, how do we know there were 4 measures? Again, I'm going to just highlight these bar lines here. Bar line at the end. And let's use a different color just so we see this better. So this would be the first measure. This would be the second measure. This would be the third. And this would be the fourth measure. Okay, so we have 4 measures in that blue circle. All right, measures are important. They tell us where we are in a section of music, and they equally divide the music. Now, depending on how we divide the music is pretty dependent on this symbol right here. So can you tell me, what do we call that symbol? What do we call that symbol? Call it out. And hopefully you said time signature. Yes, this is a time signature. Now, this time signature is pretty important because it tells us several different things. For one, the top number, this top number, tells us something very specific. What does the top number tell us? The top number of a time signature tells us, and again, please say this out loud because you might say to yourself, oh, you know what? I know the answer to this question. I don't need to say it out loud. I know that the number tells the thing, but, it just tells us something. But you need to be able to articulate this or explain it, because a good sign that you truly understand something is that you can teach it or explain it to someone else, right? So again, what is that question? What is the answer to this question? What is the top number? What does the top number of a time signature tell us? And hopefully you mentioned, it tells us how many beats fit in a measure. So how many beats fit in a measure? Now in this case, the top number happens to be 4, right? So that tells us that we can fit 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4 beats in this first measure, okay? But it gets a little bit more complicated, and this is probably where I lose so many students, okay? Because this is a little confusing, but it's very important to understanding time signatures in general, okay? So this bottom number here, what does this bottom number tell us? And you might say, well, It doesn't matter because it's the same number. But the reality is it makes a big difference. The next popular incorrect answer, I should say, that I get is, oh, I see a pattern here, Mr. G. I see that there are, right? Didn't we just say that there are 1, 2, 3, there's 4 measures here. So maybe that bottom number tells us how many measures fit in one line. And my response to you, just think about it for a second. Why would you need to know how many measures fit in one line of music? Right? When you think about it from that perspective, oh yeah, that's not important to know, right? But one thing that is important to know is what type of note gets one beat, okay? Because that's what the bottom number tells us. It tells us what type of note gets one beat. And let me just show you this really quick. If you're having trouble understanding this, think of it like a fraction, okay? So if this were a fraction, 4/4. What's another way of saying 4/4? Well, you could say 4/4. You could say it in the same way, like let's say instead of 4/4, right? What if it was 1/4? Well, one way you could say 1/4 is 1/4, right? In the same way you could say 4/4, right? Now, if you say it that way, it's an easy little shortcut to help us understand that we can fit 4 quarter notes in one measure, okay? Or one other way to put it is we have 4 beats per measure, and a quarter note, which is this note right here, a quarter note is going to get 1 beat, okay? So this is just some basic stuff, and this is a good way to approach rhythm, because if I have so many students who get confused with time signatures or don't see the importance of them, but once you especially once you start performing a lot of different pieces of music, you realize, hey, wow, the time signature is different. And now I realize why this song sounds a little bit different. Time signatures are super important to the structure. Again, like we said, they're the foundation of music, right? So let's keep going here. If we already know that this is a quarter note, and we just found out that it gets 1 beat, right? So this gets 1 beat, this gets 1 beat. This is a quarter rest, so nothing is being played there. So when we perform this, we're going to say shh, just to remind us, shh, okay? And then this also gets 1 beat. That means this quarter rest here takes the place of 1 beat, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 beats here in this measure. Now, when we perform this, we are going to clap it. And I want you to actually do this wherever you're watching this. I want you to actually clap along and I want you to say these specific things for these different rhythms. So for example, for this quarter note, we are going to clap and say ta, okay? So we're going to say ta whenever we have a quarter note. Now let's move on to here, right? This type of note is obviously different. It doesn't get 1 beat like this quarter note. This is a half note, and it gets 2 beats. And whenever we clap it, we're going to say toe, okay? Toe. And we're going to hold that out for 2 beats. So just for example, all right, if we have these two measures here, I'm going to perform them. I'm going to clap and say this, okay? Starting at the beginning on this ta right here, okay? So here I go. 1, 2, I'm going to clap it and say it. Ta, ta, sh, ta, to, sh, ta. Now to make this a little bit more exciting, I have a little playback here. Now, you can't see this and you don't need to see this, but I'm actually, I have some drums set up in Logic, which is a recording program, and I'm going to play a beat. And what I want you to do is I want you to try and clap and say, to correctly identify those rhythms in the same way that I just did, right? So I'm going to do it one more time. This time I'm going to do it with a beat, and then when I'm done, I want you to try it by yourself, okay? So here we go. Let's listen along here. Okay. So here I go. I'm going to clap it and say it from the beginning. Here I go. 1, 2, here I go. Ta, ta, sh, ta, to, sh, ta, Okay? Now I want you to try it. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, now you should be done by then, okay? And let's stop this for a second. All right, one other thing that's important to mention, whenever we clap and say a note that's longer than a quarter note, right? A quarter note is just ta. But if you were clapping a longer note, like a half note, I want you to actually physically show me that beat. So you're going to clap it like this, to, and hold it out, okay? Now it feels, I totally get this. This feels dumb, okay? Yes, it feels pointless, except, especially with rhythm, the more that you physically do something, you're more likely to internalize it and feel that rhythm. And that is a huge part of not being a good percussionist necessarily, but just being a good musician is being able to feel the music, right? In the same way that a dancer might feel the pulse of the tempo and feel the music that they're performing, we need to feel that rhythm, okay? So even just clapping this is going to show us that we understand it and that we know what's going on. So let's keep going here. We just did those first two measures. And if you look throughout this whole piece, nothing else is new for example 1 until we come to this last measure here, okay? Now, if you know what types of notes these are, I want you to tell me, call it out. What type of notes are those? Literally say it out loud. And hopefully you said a whole note. Not a whole note because there's a hole in it, but a whole note with a W because it takes up the whole measure. Okay? And this whole note gets how many beats? How many beats does a whole note get? How many beats does a whole note get? And hopefully you called out 4 beats. Now, how do you know that a whole note should get 4 beats? How would you already know that that note has to get 4 beats? And I'll give you a clue. Well, if it's a whole note and it takes up the whole measure, we already know from something that this has to be 4 beats. What tells us that this note has to be 4 beats? What tells us that this note has to be 4 beats? And hopefully, answer out loud if you know it. Hopefully you said, yes, the time signature tells us that that has to get 4 beats because again, there's 4 beats in every measure. So this whole note has to be equal to 4 beats, okay? And now when we clap and say this whole note, we're going to do it very similar to the half note. We're going to clap it and hold it out. It's going to go like this. To, right? Again, feeling those beats, the 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you're going to say to for that. Now here's what we're going to try and do. I'm going to clap the entire example first by myself, and then you are going to try and clap and say the entire example by yourself. All right? So let's zoom out here so we have the whole example. Let's get rid of these things. All right, so we could see it nice and clear. And we're going to play our beat in the background. And I'm going to clap it and say it. So if you want to listen and follow along, see if you can follow the music. Also, I should mention if there is probably this has to be, no exaggeration, it has to be in the top 3 mistakes that any of my students make, especially when you're on the earlier side of reading music. Almost every if I had to put a percentage on it, it's got to be 70-80% of students have made, if not higher, have made this mistake in the past. And this is the mistake. Let's pretend that this highlighter is where your eyes are watching, okay? So you start at the beginning, right? You're following along. Okay, rest, ta, to, rest, ta, to, ta, 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 rest. Here's the problem. Right after that line, this is where they go. Ta, ta, sh, ta, to. Now you might be thinking, well, what's wrong with that? They just went to the next line. The problem is, I want you to tell it. You tell me, what's the mistake that was just made? If that was If you followed that top line and then just went to that second line, what's wrong about that? And again, say it out loud. What's wrong about that? And hopefully you said the problem with that is that you are repeating the same music, right? Because this line of music is the same as this line of music. It's just supposed to be performed by a different part. Ideally, this would be performed maybe by sopranos and altos, and maybe this would be performed by tenors and basses. Okay, so make sure that when you're following your music, you're going to go through this line, and then you're immediately going to go to this line. You are going to stay on whichever line you're following. You could even start on the bass clef line, but make sure you continue on the bass clef line, right? So either way is fine, but here we go. I'm going to play back our beat here, and I'm going to clap it and say it. This is just me. Try and follow along in your music. Here I go. 1, 2, beginning. Here I go. Ta, ta, sh, ta, to, sh, ta, to, ta, 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 sh. Next line. Ta, sh, to, ta, 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 to. All right. Now it is your turn. You're going to try and do the same thing. And again, I understand this might feel weird because you're, at home or wherever you're watching this. Still try and do this because again, practicing this hopefully will help you improve your rhythm skills. All right. So here we go from the top. And I'll count you in. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, by yourself. Go. Shh. Shh. Next line. Shh. Shh. One, 2, 3, and off. All right. Hopefully you ended close to the correct time. Hopefully our rests, because when I was saying shh, hopefully our rest lined up close to the correct point. But here's one other thing I'd like to do. Let's have a little fun with this, okay? Now, maybe you've been watching this video and you're like, oh, this is so easy, or do you know this stuff? Well, let's make it a little bit more difficult. I'm going to speed up the tempo. Now, what is the tempo? I want you to answer me right now. Say it out loud. What is tempo? And hopefully you said tempo is the speed of the beat, okay? Is the speed or rate that the beat is going through in a particular piece of music. So we just heard, and let me play this back, that was the tempo that we had. And this tempo happened to be 85 beats per minute. So why don't we speed it up a little bit? Let's go to 100 beats per minute. Think we could do the same example there at 100 beats per minute? Let's find out. Here we go, beginning. 1, 2, clap and say it now. Go. Ta, ta, sh. Shh. 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 2, 3, and off. Good. Now, hopefully you made it through that performance at a faster tempo. That was 100 beats per minute. But probably you had no problem with that. So let's speed up the tempo. Let's go. Now we went from 85 to 100. Why don't we just try it right at, this is 120 beats per minute. Wow. Now we're cooking. Let's try it again. Beginning. Here we go. Ready, hands ready to clap. Make sure you're clapping it and saying it. Here we go. Beginning. 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, ta, sh, ta, to, sh, ta, to, ta, 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 sh, ta, sh, ta, sh, to, ta, 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 to. Good. All right, and one final time, even faster. Okay, so we're going to speed up this tempo. Let me just stop it for a second. We are going to speed it up. Let's go from 120. I wonder how fast we can go. Let's go up to think we can just jump right up to 150 beats per minute. Think you can try it? 150 beats per minute. This is almost twice as fast as the first time we performed it, right? Because if it was 85 beats per minute, right? 85 plus 85, what would that be? 170 beats per minute. So we're almost twice as fast, right? Think you could do it? Let's see what happens. Even if you make a mistake, you get lost, just keep going. It's fine. All right? Here we go. From the beginning. Wow. All right. Sounds like the beat to Footloose or something. All right. So here we go. Example 1. Ready, hands ready, clap. 1, 2, clap and say it. Ready, go. Ta, ta, sh, ta, to, sh, ta, to, ta, 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 sh, ta, sh, ta, sh, to, ta, 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 to. One more time, by yourself without me, go. Sh, 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 sh. All right, hopefully you made it there. That was 150 beats per minute. Now, since this is a video, in case you got a little lost and maybe that was too fast, maybe you just want to rewind the video. Try it again, right? This is a great way to improve your rhythm reading skills, is to start very basic, start slow, speed up the tempo, and hopefully you were able to follow along and handle that. So hopefully this video was informative and helpful. Have a great day.